Okay.
What is up, YouTube? Back with another random FPV interviews. Tonight, I am blessed to have a man who literally needs no introduction to most of you, but he's got over 300,000 YouTube subscribers, and he's single-handedly one of the best pilots in the hobby, in my opinion. I'd like to introduce you guys to Mr. Steele. Mr. Steele, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, bro. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
So, a lot of people have been asking me how you very first found the hobby. I know you had some experience with other RC. What was your very first exposure to FPV?
I just stumbled across a YouTube video, Trappy chasing some wings with some other wings in the mountains. Sounded pretty cool, and I don't know. Ultimately, I didn't think I could afford it, so I kind of started looking in other ways and areas, and then was flying helis at the time, and ultimately came across the Blackout Mini H quad, which was really expensive, but I don't know. I just put up like a tenth of my yearly salary to buy it, and obviously it worked out. But it was a pretty big purchase when I first did it. I think I spent like $2,000 or something, like $2,000, like in one sitting at Get FPV after spending hours on the phone with Sean, a guy that still works there. So it was pretty fun.
And so your first quad was a Blackout?
Yeah, I got a Discovery Pro because I wanted to like try to make money with it. And I flew that for maybe a week or two. And in the process of building that, I was also like ordering all the parts because at the time it was just like it is now, and it was impossible to find shit. So you'd order from one site, one thing, and then you'd order from another site, and then at some point in the near future, you'll have all the parts to build what you needed.
Did you break a bunch of arms on the on the 450?
No, I never crashed a 450 I'd never crashed anything other than a mini quad and a Phantom, mainly because I used to take Phantom 2s out and make them fly manual mode. Like we'd get all these broken Phantoms in. I worked at this hobby shop for a minute called Atlanta Hobby, and yeah, I would like take Phantoms out in the back and pull the gimbals off of them, put them in manual mode when you still could, and I just fly those things around. They flew pretty good considering how dopey a Phantom is. But I have a couple of videos like in my early YouTube days where I'm flying a Phantom in the rain, line of sight in the back of the Atlanta Hobby. It's pretty funny in
No
manual
shit.
mode, doing flips and shit. Like no one even knew Phantoms could do flips. And I'm like doing power loops basically with a Phantom line of sight in the rain. It was pretty fun.
What was the first event you ever went to?
Actually, I think it was Drone Nationals 2015. That was the first like real FPV event that I went to.
That
I
was
went.
overseas, right?
No, that was in Sacramento, California.
Is that the
I
one
think
you won? But
no, I
didn't
didn't
you?
win it. Chad Nowak won. He won all of it. He won the freestyle. I came in second freestyle, but he won freestyle, and he won the racing bit, and he also won the team event as
What's
well.
the
Well,
event I'm thinking of where it was overseas and you won racing?
I've never won anything, so I
I
don't
thought
know.
you'd won a racing event.
No,
Oh, I may be totally wrong then.
got the
Maybe
wrong guy.
you won freestyle and you never got paid. I just remember hearing a story about.
I got second place to mention in freestyle at the Dubai Grand Prix, which I'm not angry at all because I think Minchin is a way better pilot than I am. However, I'm a little salty about how it was judged because it was judged by three 3D helicopter pilots, and Minchin he saved his quad after he lost video at like 500 feet, somehow brought it back to where he was, and then proceeded to do a line of sight freestyle event, which, he had no video. So it was all line of sight. He was watching the quad, and the people that were judging were watching the quad. And that's who won in a freestyle FPV event, which is kind of weird. But at the same time, like, again, I'm not mad. I didn't see any money out of that. So it was just cool to be around and watch him be able to save that shit from like 500 feet up, because a quad at like 300 feet is impossible to tell what the hell is going on. So him being able to like pop the goggles off in an unknown location after having technical problems and bringing it back was pretty impressive. But yeah, that was the only event that I got second place drone nationals freestyle 2016, second, or maybe it was third. I don't know. I got the trophy up there. I think it was, hold on, let me look. Third. I got third. And I have the second place Dubai trophy up there. I've never won anything though.
That's my mistake. I was under the impression you'd won one, but I guess it was the second place finish I was thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a video from there, and Minchin doesn't. And I guess nobody else's video from that event got any traction. So everyone's like, oh, you must have won because I posted a video, you know? I don't know. Whatever.
I think what I was thinking of was like you raced in an event that, because you know you're not primarily known as a racer. Have you ever raced in any events?
Um, I raced in 2015 Drone Nationals, and I raced at the World Drone Prix, which was like March of 2016. And that was like the last real race that I participated in. Everything else after that was like I did something for the race, like I commentated it or something like that. But I haven't raced in a serious manner since March of 2015 or 16. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. So, do you happen to remember which model your first flight controller was?
Yeah, it was a CC3D. I don't know the specifics. It was white and it had a shitload of pin headers on it. It had like a plug on it. And I remember the Naze 32 Rev 5 had just come out like a couple weeks after I got the CC3D, and I had buddies that were running the Naze at the time. And they were like, oh, this thing's amazing. Acro mode is the way to go. And I was still kind of dabbling with acro mode and angle mode at the time. And the guy named Chris Brand, which I don't know, some people will know him. He's from Atlanta as well, or maybe not from here, but he lives here and he flies mini quads. And yeah, he was the one that was like, yeah, you got to try the Naze. And I was pretty reluctant to try it. But then when I did and ended up switching completely to acro mode, it was like night and day.
My first was a Naze 32, so I can relate.
Yeah, that shit flew pretty well for considering everything else that was out at the time, like a Wii, like a multi Wii and shit like that. I mean, that those things fly pretty decent too in acro mode.
Sorry, I'm just feeling the questions here, so give me just a
Okay,
second.
you're good. I actually need to be looking at the chat. I'm
Um,
like,
I try to keep
clean
them.
clean
Try to.
flight was way after we were on base flight, bro. Someone just said something about clean flight, dragon nears. There was something called base flight back in the day, and that was before clean flight. I don't conformal coat anything, dogmouth. I've never actually tried to conformal coat anything, and if I've flown in the rain, it's just I'm just flying and hoping it doesn't get a water droplet on the ESC. Oh, you
Right.
mean open toilet, vampire? Open pilot. You mean open toilet? I remember the slidey bars on open pilot, like with the CC3D, and then one of them said snappy, and like those slide. It was basically trying to make tuning easy, which, as we figured out, even in today, 2020, you know, we've been doing this shit for like 6 years or whatever, trying to figure out how to tune these things. And back then, there was like 3 sliders, and you could like try to put the slider where you thought would work for you, and it didn't work at all. But I just remember the one slider that was called Snappy. It was the Snappy slider, and it never fucking worked. But on Naze 32, like the defaults work pretty well, and I was able to adjust some stuff based on some Boris B videos. If anybody remembers him, he's a creator of Betaflight, which people probably know of, but they don't know that he created it. He's not even flying anymore.
We owe him a great deal of gratitude.
Yeah.
So Double A wants to know what was the foam 3D plane you had at Rampage?
That was a Twisted Hobbies Edge, Edge 540. It's like their crack series, which is like a small kind of profile style 3D foamy plane. They're about $300, like all said and done. It's a pretty expensive piece of foam, but flies really well. It's a pain in the ass to build. I Like coming from quads, like do you think quads are a pain in the ass? Try building a foam plane. That shit's such a pain in the ass. I don't know why. I just don't enjoy it. But I have like three of them. I have a um, what is it called? Uh, they just sent it to me and I love it, but I haven't finished it yet. Fuck, I don't know what it's called. It's like an X style. It's like a beaver. You put an FPV camera on it. It's made by Twisted Hobbies. I think it's called the Proxy. That's what it's called. The Proxy. And anyways, it's like a foam plane, exactly like the one that you guys or whoever asked saw at Rampage, but you can put an FPV camera on it and it's got landing gear and shit. And you can like hover around and fly. And you can put a flight controller on it too and make it super buttery.
So eventually you found Kiss, and you've pretty much stuck with Kiss since you found it, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like the day that I put that shit on my quad, it was over. I never flew anything else. There was one point in time where I switched from Kiss to an RG20, which is a Rotor Geeks 20 amp. And the only reason I did that was because the Kiss 20 amp or 18 amp, I guess at the time, was we were kind of overpowering it. Like I don't know if you know, the Kiss 18 was such a tiny ass ESC. It was like half the size of whatever their 25 amp is now. It's like maybe not half, but at least a third smaller. And we were trying to do like 4S on 2300 kV motors on tri blades with 5x4x3s on there. And it was just drawing so many amps and they would catch on fire. They would get really hot. And if you touched anything, like if you bumped into something, the shit would just like burst into flames. So I went through, I don't know. I swear in a month, I probably went through 15 ESCs and about 10 motors and about 4 flight controllers. And this is all shit like I'm coming out of my pocket. And it flew so well that I didn't want to switch. Like that, I went through all of that because it flew so much better than everything else. Um, and then I tried the Rotor Geeks 20 amps and I was flying those for like maybe a week. And I went on a job and I fail safed over the starting line of a monster truck race and they ran that shit over. So yeah, I only got to fly that for like like a week or two. And then I ended up going back to Kiss because I had a 6-inch alien. Because at Drone Nationals 2015, that's when I met Chad Noack for the first time. And the alien actually was kind of its inception was around right around that time. And he brought a 5-inch alien to race with, and he brought two 6-inch aliens, and he gave me one of them as in a frame. And I, was kind of reluctant to build it because I was like, oh, it's a new frame. I like the blackout. I don't really want to build this thing. And then when that crashed, or when that got run over, I built it, and it was a 6-inch alien that I ran 5-inch props on, and I ran Kiss 18s on it. It sounded really weird. Like I've got a couple of videos on my channel from back then. It just sounds super weird when you put a 5-inch prop on a 6-inch body because the props aren't as close to the chassis and they don't make that like ripping noise anymore. It kind of sounds really smooth. It's a weird concept.
I guess it was kind of special when you found the alien, right?
I mean, the first time I flew it, I was like, well, I'm not buying any more blackouts. This is it. This is what I want, but I want a 5-inch version. So I hit
Did you
up
start working with them right away, pretty much?
I just hit up Chad and was like, hey, can you introduce me to Impulse? I really want some 5-inch aliens. And they were like, sure. And at the time, there was a guy named Soma that created the Warp Quad. He was like the originator. Him and Sean, Blake, what is his last name? Blakemore. I think it's Blakemore, Sean Blakemore. He's the guy that runs Impulse RC now. And he's the one who I've developed like all of my Mr. Steele stuff with. He's the one that develops all of the, him and I I kind of went to him with criteria and we created the Apex and he did all of it basically. I just said, hey, I want this, and this, and this, and this. And he would show me something. I'd be like, no, change this, and this, and this. So, whether that's designing or not, I mean, you still need a little bit of know-how to understand what stuff goes where and what you're actually looking for. Otherwise, you're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, which is what most frame companies do. But someone that flies every day, it was really easy for me to be able to be like, yeah, that's not going to work. This is going to work and that's going to work. But I guess moral of the story is I did start working with them pretty much immediately. And they sent me a bunch of 5-inch frames and then they sent John some 5-inch frames and we were all kind of flying aliens for a long time. And, I flew that shit for like 4 years until the Apex came out.
I know you're huge on refinement. I mean, that's what ethics does. They take things and refines it, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if it's a little bit off, make it better type situation.
Yeah, exactly. Without, stepping on toes for the most part. Like you can't just rip something off, change the color and, you know, do something like that. If it's a important thing, obviously if it's like a hat or an SD card holder or something like that, it's not really going to change the world if you just put your logo on it because it's like a branded thing at that point. But some things that I've seen out there in the world that I use on a regular basis or that I've wanted to use, there's something similar to what I want, but it just doesn't necessarily fill all of the boxes. And I would have to carry another tool or, I'd have to carry something else to get everything that I need. So I just kind of try to refine it to where it works extremely well for what I want. When I'm developing products, I'm developing them for me. Like it's my, it's for me. Like ethics is me just making products for me, and then at the end of the day, it kind of works that other people like those things as well. So I'm not going out of my way to try to make shit for people or like make stuff that I think is going to sell and make me money. Like I'm just making shit because I enjoy making things that I'm going to use.
Hell yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Damn, that boy thick. 6'3", 290.
Yeah. He is too. I've met him in person. He's a big guy.
That's a big dude.
So I just wanted to thank you for dropping your NPRM video, man. We really appreciate that from the hobby standpoint.
Yeah, I'd been kind of reluctant to say anything on this topic just because I don't like getting involved in politics. I've been super avoidant of politics pretty much my entire life. Maybe because I don't ever feel like I know enough about it. Not necessarily just the FAA, just in general. Like if someone's like, "Hey, what did you vote for?" Or, what party do you stand behind, or anything like that. I never felt like I understood enough about any of what was going on in pop culture to justify giving someone my opinion on it. So, at this point in my life, I'm starting to realize that the rest of the fucking world doesn't know what they're doing. So, for all these people that vote on dumbass shit based on their parents telling them what they should vote for, or their parents voted, or just going off of what the people around them are doing to fit in. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that it's kind of just, if you're gonna think for yourself, fucking do it and be, confident in it. You're gonna be wrong. Everybody's wrong, but it's better to, have an opinion and have a reason to stand behind it rather than just, I don't know. Like for instance, this stuff. Like, regardless if I know every detail about the FAA's proposed ruling, I know a little bit about it, and I know that even that little bit that I do know is going to affect not only my life but a lot of other people's lives. So, with the reach that I have, I've just tried to make do with what I could. I actually thought of making. I was in the middle of watching a video that morning, and I never fucking watch videos ever. Like anything YouTube related, it's always like either workout, climbing, or
Car.
nutritional. Or I do some car stuff. Yeah, like occasionally. Those are like the main four, like cars, nutrition, uh, health related, or occasionally I'll watch maybe an interview or something like that. But particularly, I guess it was like 2 days ago, Saturday morning, I was watching the interview with Bruce Simpson on the Michael Rowlands show. It's like Bruce Simpson, Joshua Bardwell, and Kebab,
Yeah.
and one other dude,
Enoch.
Enoch. Yes. And anyways, I watched that, and I'm never intrigued enough to like take that shit into the shower. And I like took my phone into the shower and was listening to it because you can't fucking leave it outside. So I just put it on the wall and was like listening as I was, getting ready for the day. And I was like, wow, this is pretty important. And I'm extremely intrigued that Bruce is so adamant about helping because he doesn't even fucking live in the United
Yeah,
States.
me too.
So, for someone to be that psyched on trying to help, at the end of the day, he's he's trying to help the whole world because it seems like, if the United States passes something, then it's probably going to trickle to other first world countries, and then probably be a worldwide sanction eventually, or at least steer somewhere some other people to make decisions of their own that are based off of whatever we do. But again, like Europe and the UK has made their own shit. The Canadians have done their own stuff. So I just I just think it's cool that Bruce is doing it and trying to help. But I started to realize that, you know, those guys have a couple hundred thousand subscribers, which is nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, nothing to like say it's a lot of fucking people. They got a lot of people following him. But from like a technical standpoint, there's probably more people following those guys from that just like to tinker, where, I feel like a lot of guys that follow me are more into just going out and having fun and flying. And maybe, I actually meet a lot of people and children that got into FPV through watching my videos and getting inspired through what I do, I guess. So, when I make a video, it might be going out to all different types of ages, whether that's from 12 to 15-year-olds that their parents can understand that cussing is a part of life. I get people all the time. My son would love to watch your videos, but you say too many bad words. Like, go fuck you, dude. Have your kid has said fuck more times than you have probably, and he's 12. Like the world is like cussing in my mind is a form of truthfulness. Like if someone cusses, the more they cuss, I feel like the more they're telling me the truth. And if they're, super polite, then they're probably fucking up to something. So, anyways, yeah, I got a lot of broad audience and a lot of younger people that this is going to affect, and possibly even their upcoming career. I got people that want to go into aerospace engineering. They want to do drone flying as a career, possibly getting out of high school and starting up their own drone company for flying for commercial um, videography gigs. And all of a sudden, this is going to put a giant damper on who can get into that and what kind of money is going to be involved to get into it. And also what kind of rules are we going to be able to follow or not be able to follow to get the shot. It's just a lot of regulation. So I'm just trying to make it happen, trying to spread the word as much as I can with the amount of time. I'm a little late to the game, but I think a week is a pretty good time. If I had done it like on fucking Thursday or some shit, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be at the protest on Saturday. You guys better take off work and drive out." Um, you know, it's a little late, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I definitely think the FAA is overreaching. Really, their like control is crazy, and it's gonna affect like all RC hobbies. I mean, or flight hobbies at least, not just FPV. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of the thing that really stood out to me when I was listening to that interview was the fact that it was going to take a huge hit for people that like to do this shit in school. People that when I didn't do it in high school, I wish I had, but middle school and high school now they have these STEM programs where they might be doing, aviation related, like technical class or something where they're trying to build a wing and, have all these kids developing different wings out of foam. And then they go out and try them and see who's flies further or whose is more efficient. And all of that stuff is going to be banned basically if this goes through. Like if you have something that's got a motor on it that's considered remote control, yeah, you probably won't get called out if you do it every once in a while. But at the end of the day, if there's somebody there that really wants to make a stipulation out of it, they can, report you to the FAA for taking your class out in the backyard of your school and throwing a model airplane. So it's pretty hardcore, especially considering that it's so unnecessary. But at the end of this, like at the end of the day, like if this all goes through, I've already got my fucking I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing. Um, and I don't know how I mean, I know how I'm going to do it, but I just hope it doesn't come to that because, as I started out in this hobby, I was pretty rebellious, even though, what I was doing isn't necessarily putting anybody in danger. But, coming from a perspective of all these people that think that I am like a huge part of the reason why the FAA is cracking down on this, I am not the fucking reason that people are cracking down on this. There's a lot more money in it than telling someone that they can't fly near a building with a mini quad that weighs 600 grams, you know? So I just think it's ridiculous. And if it comes down to it, we're just going to have to continue doing what we do and, band together. And I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully it doesn't come down to that because there's a lot more money that I don't want to spend on lawyer fees trying to do what I want to do just by breaking the law, I guess. Um,
I totally hear you, and I think there's a lot of us out there that are not going to stop flying. I mean, I know I'm not.
yeah.
And I don't want to have to think that I'm breaking the law to go fly. I mean, even if wherever I'm flying, if I want to go fly out in a field in the middle of nowhere, that's going to be breaking the law under the NPRM now. You
Yep.
know, so it's like it doesn't really even matter about where you're flying. And as far as you flying near buildings, you guys, I remember watching a video with you and Tommy talking about how much work you put into scouting for scouting out a place before you go on a building dive. You guys are checking all the different areas, making sure there's no people around, making sure you've got like good exit areas and good exit strategy with your quad. It's not like you just roll up to the spot and hit it while there's 1,500 people underneath you.
Yeah. I mean, we dig as much risk management as we can. And I think people underestimate how easy it is. They think it's a lot easier than it is to just go do some of the stuff that we've done in these videos. Like, out of all the people that fly FPV, if you said, "Hey, go downtown Atlanta and fly this building," there's probably gonna be like less than 1% that even would consider it. First of all, because they don't trust their gear, they're scared they're gonna break the law. There's like all kinds of things that are gonna stop people from doing that. And then the next part is the people that actually go, they might have the balls to say they're gonna do it, and then they get there and they're like, "No, it's kind of sketchy. Like, what if that security guard comes out? Like, what if this guy on the street walks over here?" I mean, there's a lot to be considered in the confidence and also, how much risk is there? Is there risk enough to justify doing it? Like, I'm not doing it just for videos. Like, I'm doing it because it's a technical achievement. Like, being able to do that shit is not only proving that I have the confidence to do it, proving that my aircraft can do it, also proving that I know how to scan the area for radio frequencies and understand that, hey, if I go behind that, like, I'm not going to be able to have video anymore and I'm going to crash and lose my aircraft and lose my GoPro. So there, you fall from 1,000 feet onto concrete. I'm sorry, there's going to be dust. You're going to have to bring a broom to sweep that shit up off the ground. So there's a lot of extra shit that goes into doing some of those things that just people don't take into consideration. They're just like, "Oh, anybody can go down there and do that." Well, how many fucking videos have you seen of people diving the Bank of America building in Atlanta? There's pretty much 3, and they're all people that we know. So people just don't do that shit because it's risky for them and their gear, not necessarily for people, I guess. I mean,
Right.
particularly that building. I was on the phone with the FAA like 3 days ago, actually. Um, and I was talking about that building because I called the FAA, the FISDO in Atlanta, and I was kind of having a conversation with them um, about airspace in Atlanta in general and previous things that I've been reported for. I was just trying to see what my record was. If I had any kind of, I mean, I know I have a lot of complaints, but none of them have really ever been followed up on, and only 2 of them that I'm aware of. And I was curious what the first one was because a couple years ago, I got called into the FISDO in Atlanta for something that I did in Miami. I was just flying downtown Miami, which there's no airspace regulation ruling there that I'm aware of. Um, I'll look real quick, but anyways, they call me in and we had a conversation, and they were like, at the end of the conversation, they were like, "Well, you're doing this under, Part 107, so technically it is all legal, everything that you're doing." Because you're not necessarily flying in an airspace that requires. Yeah. So what I was doing was not in Class B. So technically, I'm in Class G, which is open to interpretation. Is there something below you? There's a lot of shit going on with what you can see with a GoPro and how you can judge if that's underneath you and what airspace you're in based on the places around you. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff.
Kind of
So
gray area.
there's a lot of gray. But anyways, I was talking to this dude on the phone, and he was like, "Oh, well, what you did in Atlanta was airspace violation." I was like, "Bullshit. Downtown Atlanta is not in Class B airspace." He's like, "Yeah, it is." And we argued for like a good 30 seconds of how downtown Atlanta is not Class B airspace. And he's like, "It's totally, you better look at your air maps again. I hope you're, reading your shit. I hope you know what you're talking about." I'm like, "Dude, you are the fucking manager of the FISDO in Atlanta, and you don't understand that the downtown Atlanta is not in Class B airspace." So it's just fucking out of control that I was having to argue with this guy that literally does airspace for a living and is the manager of a giant area, and he's telling me that some place that is in his city is not, or is in quote unquote Class B airspace. It was just ridiculous. It was super, super hard to deal with that. But and it ended up being that he was cool, and he just wanted me to know that I, could be wrong, that, where I was flying was not in a specified airspace. He's like, "There's helipads down there." Like, "Yeah, I'm looking at the fucking map right now, dude. There's no Class B airspace there. There is on the south side of the city, but not where I was flying." So I'm not the airspace master, but I was pretty adamant about that particular one because, again, we try to check and make sure everything that we do is legit. Sometimes we make mistakes, but for the most part, I'll just show you if it'll fucking focus. I doubt it will. Probably won't. But yeah, I don't know
There
what's
it
going on.
goes.
You see how there's a bubble around it?
Yeah.
That middle spot is where we were flying. So I don't know. It's funny. Funny shit. I don't know everything, but I did know that that wasn't in Class B airspace. So I argued it.
Did he end up like saying you were right, or did you guys
Nope.
just kind of stalemate?
He just he was like, I hope you know what you're talking about." I'm like, "You basically just said I'm wrong when I know I'm not." But okay, whatever.
Well, let's
Yeah.
jump back to ethics. For those that don't know that are watching, Steele's part owner of a company called Ethics, and they take a lot of products. They either make new products or they're refining current products that are out there. How did Ethics come to be? I know you said you make stuff you want. When did you decide I'm going to try to start making stuff and sell?
Um well, without opening a lot of old cans of worms, I worked for a company for like 2 years and realized that that was not going to be a viable source of income ever. And I, probably about a year in, I started working with Trappy. Um, I wanted to make a motor because nobody was really no, but I don't know if you look back in the history of FPV, it's not that old, like the last 4 years really. Nobody had really been, there was like pros, but what justified a pro in the FPV world was you had a big sponsor. Like there was no such thing as people that were making money flying FPV. So, justifying the fact that someone was considered pro, but yet they're just getting free gear occasionally was kind of bullshit to me. I grew up skateboarding and I realized that when you become pro, you don't make a lot of money, but you make enough money to do what you want to do in that world of skateboarding. And you also have brand deals, like say you go pro for a certain company, you might go pro for Nike, or you might go pro for a board company like Girl or something like that. And each time you go pro for a company, you get a salary based on that company. You get brand deals. So if they make a deck with your face on it or with your name on it, then you make profit off of, probably a percentage off of each deck that's sold. You have a pro shoe with Adidas or Nike or something, you probably make a percentage off of whatever gross net or like net sales. It's all based on profit margin off of products that you are bringing. Your name is selling
Like
essentially. Like,
licensing, basically
yeah,
licensing your name
like for
or your
instance,
brand.
the Jordan, like the fucking Michael Jordan and his shoes with Nike. Um, it is Nike, right?
Yes.
I'm sure it's Nike. I'm not a huge basketball person, but yeah, like that type of shoe. Like people want the Jordan, and they go buy the Jordan. Like you can buy a Dunk, but you probably want a Jordan too. It's multiple reasons there are like brand deals. So I guess in a nutshell, no one had done that yet with FPV. And my first opportunity at doing that was with a propeller. And I didn't really come up with a propeller. So Drone Nationals 2015, kind of breakdown back up a little bit. I was flying HQ 5x4x2. That was the prop. It was made of glass nylon, and everybody flew that prop. There were a couple people flying these Doll 54x3s, which were like, Doll, the company that makes props, and they were like the indestructible props, but they flew like shit. They were like really poorly balanced, and nobody flew them because they just like, unless you were flying, excuse me, to like fly around and crash into stuff, nobody flew them, or you were just cheap and you didn't want to buy quality props that exploded if you looked at them wrong, which that was what HQ glass nylons did. Uh, so I went to Drone Nationals with bi-blades, and they made a tri-blade, and I knew it was good, but I'd never flown it. I had heard people rave about it, but I'd never flown it. And my buddy Sean Harlan, which was a blackout pilot, he's kind of one of these dudes that set me up with Team Black Sheep. No, sorry. That's opposite. I set him up with Team Black Sheep. He set me up with kind of like Blackout and Cobra. Cobra was one of my first sponsors, like Cobra Motors.
Right.
So Cobra Motors and Thunder Power. Thunder Power is actually my very first sponsor, and they just gave me a discount. They gave me a 50% discount. And honestly, I think it was a lot related with the fact that I worked at a hobby shop. They were like, "Oh, this guy works at a hobby shop and he flies FPV. Cool, we'll give him a 50% discount." That's just basically like selling to another dealer, and he's repping us. So it was like a win-win for them. I was paying, $25 for a battery that, at the time, their batteries were $50 for a 4S 1300, which everyone else on the market was $20 for that same battery. So it was like already I was paying outrageous prices I was getting half off, and I was still paying more than most people were paying for, regular batteries. But, I to this day, I think the Thunder Power has some of the best batteries out on the market, and they continue to put out good batteries and continue to push. So I was willing to stand behind that, even if the price was ridiculous. And then Cobra Motors, I got on there through Sean. And I remember Banny UK was on that shit. Like, it was just such a weird team. P Shaw, like Patrick Shaw was on there. We had all these random ass people, but nobody really got paid. We got free gear, but nobody had got paid or anything. But no one had anything special. It was just like, this guy's a Cobra pilot, and then you flew Cobra Motors. There was no, this is the special Cobra motor that this guy flies, or this is the special lightweight battery that this guy prefers. It was just whatever they offered, you used it. Well, when
Right.
HQ came around, my buddy Sean, we were at Drone Nationals 2015, and I think I went to the bathroom or something before one of the races, and I came back and my quad had tri blades on it. And it was funny because that morning we woke up at like 5 a.m. to do some bullshit news related thing, and there was a lot of dew on the ground. And I set my race quad on the ground, which was like some weird frame that I had got Inarmed, I think is the name of the company. They were like a New Zealand company, and Sean hooked me up with them as well. And they were like, "Yeah, we're going to try something out." And they were the first people to do like a really thin profiled quad. Like, it was like a 10 or 20 mil profile. Like, you could barely fit a flight controller in there. And it had really thick, like 6 mil arms. It was kind of a cool frame. I actually still have it. And he put tri blades on it, but earlier that morning it caught on fire. I ended up switching ESCs from KISS to some random BL Heli bullshits. And so I had brand new ESCs I'd never flown other than test hovered. I had a random ass prop on there that I'd never flown in my life. And I went and did a race and ended up like putting down some stupid times. Like, I think the average lap time was like 22 seconds, and I put down like a 19-second lap time. And I was like first by multiple seconds in the time trials at Drone Nationals, and I'd never fucking flown that quad before. So I kind of started to realize, hey, these tri blades are kind of nothing to fuck with. So, or ain't nothing to fuck with, I guess. And from that point on, I flew tri blades, and it was a glass nylon 54x3s. And then, Chad Nowak at the time was flying bullnose that he was cutting down by himself. They were 5x4.5x2, and they had a lot of yaw authority because the prop's pretty heavy, but they were really inefficient. And I was like, "Chad, you gotta fucking try these things. You gotta try these tri blades." And then Chad started flying tri blades, and then we were like, "Yo, Tommy," or everyone started flying tri blades. Carlos started flying tri blades, and then tri blades became the standard in FPV. Like that's where the tri-blade kind of craze kind of initially started. And I wanted to try to capitalize on the fact that tri-blades were something that I felt like I had a pretty big influence in making super popular. Um, so I asked Zong if he would make me a red one. He made me a
Zong's
red
the
tri-blade.
he's
He's the
the
guy that
owner of
owns
HQ, right?
HQ, yeah. So he's like, sure, why not? So he made a red tri-blade. It was the Mr. Steele tri-blade, and it had my shitty ass signature on the little tag. Like I have the worst signature in the world. I feel like when people ask me to sign shit, I'm like ruining it. So I just don't like signing things specifically because I feel like I'm ruining whatever I'm signing. I don't have some cool swoopy ass signature like most people, but so I put that out, and then within like 3 months, every person that was sponsored by HQ had a special color, and John Schizo had this really dope blue that everybody liked. So it was like more the color than the prop. So people already liked the prop, but Schizo's blue kind of took off. And this is like in the time when Schizo was king and he could do no wrong. I don't know. A lot of people remember that. It was like 4 years ago or so,
Yeah.
5 or 3 or 4 years ago. Like Schizo was like the ultimate FPV person forever. He was like the new Sharpoo. No one gave a fuck about anything except what Schizo did. And at that time, Schizo blew, HQ props. That was the thing. So I was kind of pissed that I got sidelined by my friend that didn't even intentionally do it, but his color was just cooler than mine. Mine was red and it was, kind of generic. So yeah, I think it was funny. But that was the first time someone had like branded anything, and then it became super popular. People were branding shit, but I wasn't getting paid anything. It was just like I want to brand it for clout, basically,
Right.
to say that I have a branded prop. Not only was a sponsorship a clout, but then now I had like a pro product, even though I wasn't getting paid for it. And ultimately, that led to other branded products. And then I started realizing, hey, these people are selling a shitload of stuff and I'm not doing anything with it. And I started saying, hey, what can you pay me a percentage of whatever you sell? Or can you pay me a salary based on just me being associated with your products and having a brand deal? And that's kind of where it started. I started to see a little bit of the light of how I could make this into a profession by just continuing to do what I already do. But, having people pay me as like a salesman, even though I'm
Like a
not pushing
spokesperson.
anything. I'm not pushing it, but at the same time, like people want to copy what I'm doing, and it it's like a really cool way to it's a really cool position to be in because I don't have to go out and like shill myself out to shit all the time. I do have all those fucking rubber chickens. They're all in the basement. Someone sent me a bunch of rubber chickens when I lived in my apartment. They like found my address and fucking sent that shit over. But
Doxed you, basically.
yeah. And I don't know. It's cool because I don't have to like shill myself out and be like, check, click my affiliate links, please. I gotta feed my family. Like I don't have to do that. Like
You
I
just
just make
use shit that you
videos
stand behind, and if you stand behind it and they refine it enough, you put your name on it, and there you go.
to an extent. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. I mean, sometimes shit gets done and it's like, oh, well, why'd you do that? It's like, dude, this is business. Like, I'm not trying to fuck anybody over, but you're just doing dumb shit, and I don't know. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say what I think I was gonna say, so I just won't.
It's all
But
good. I'll throw a question out there from Pox FPV. Wants to know, why do you still fly watermelons? He's loving the lemon limes.
so the the lemon lime started out because I went to a high elevation and the watermelon wasn't adequate. So it's really like a location based. And I was supposed to make a video about this. Someone actually asked me this a couple days ago. They're like, you should make a video like why there's the lemon lime, the watermelon, and then the gray, like the S3, S4, and S5 props. And at the end of the day, it comes down to what location you fly in on a regular basis and what prop setup and the weight of your quad. So I fly a really lightweight quad. I'm only 1,000 feet above sea level, and I like the response of a low pitch prop. So that's why I fly the watermelon props. If I were to go somewhere, say over 4,000 feet elevation with my same setup, then I might switch to the lemon lime props, but probably I'm just going to deal with the lowered power of the limit of the watermelons. Sorry.
I still fly the watermelons too. They're my favorite.
Yeah, like I go places all the time, and when it's really cold out, That affects how the propeller is going to perform as well. So it just depends. But for the most part, I I just kind of compensate by throttling on earlier. I'm not usually flying really hardcore freestyle in any weird locations. And if I am, I think it's better to have less power than more, because if you have too much power or too much bite, you can like balloon up into shit pretty easily. Like with a higher pitch prop, if I had done the thing that I just did where I dove down the bridge and then like pulled out at the bottom, if I had a higher pitch prop on there, I totally would have ballooned up into the ceiling. Because I had a lot of throttle resolution with that lower pitch prop, and since I had a fatter camera on there, there was a lot to be said for having that lower pitch and it's essentially like adding expo into your throttle by having a lower pitch prop. Like if you want more power, you got to push the throttle up a lot, where a higher pitch prop's a little less. It's a little more sensitive, and it can be harder to fly, I think.
So I think it's interesting you're still doing the interesting color thing with with props. You're still continuing that tradition, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, after I got fucking shut down with the color red, I actually, so when the schizo prop came out, I was like, fuck, dude, that thing looks dope as shit. And I'm not even going to fly mine anymore. I'm just going to start flying whatever. So I started asking Zong specifically for yellow, because Chad Noack and I were flying a lot together in the early days of Rotor Riot, and I wanted some way to be able to see him better in the sky, because we were doing a lot of tracking footage, and red was definitely not the color for that, because it was like kind of a blood red and it was really hard to see in the CCD cameras. And there wasn't really too many colors that popped, and yellow was one of them that was like it didn't matter really what shade, like what shade yellow it was. Yellow just pops in general in the CCD cameras. So I asked Zong for like a banana yellow HQ 5x4x3, and that prop was made. And it's funny, I think I was staying at Chad Capper's at the time for a couple of days, or like a week or something like that, when we were doing the Vendetta review or some shit. And I ended up having a box shipped there or something like that. It may have been shipped to my house. I may have brought a bunch with me in my bag, and I ended up giving some to Chad Noack. And basically, at the end of the day, that yellow prop got turned into the Rotor Riot prop. And it wasn't like no one made any money off of it, but they were like, "Oh, put the Rotor Riot logo on that, and that's our prop now." I'm like, "What? This is my prop." But all right, whatever. I'll let you have it, because at the time I was kind of just going with the flow. So the yellow prop, that was the Rotor Riot prop, was originally my new color, and then I was like, "Fuck!" They took that. So then I started working on a prop after the V1S came out. So I used to fly the V1S when Chad made That's when I switched over from glass nylon to polycarbonate around the V1S 5x4.3. They had a 5x4x3, which was like they're supposed to be the replacement of the glass nylon prop. And then the 5x4x3 actually flew better, had a little bit more pitch. And I always got green and pink. And occasionally I would just like, run out of green props and throw a pink one on there. And I think I remember Kevin one day, he had like the same setup and he was like, "I got watermelon props," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh shit, that's fucking funny." And I do the same thing. I'm gonna make my new prop watermelon. So started working with Zong. Actually, it's funny because all the props that I've flown since the glass nylon 5x4x3, I've just been trying to make a polycarbonate version of the glass nylon 5x4x3. That's still like the best flying prop ever in
It
my
just
mind.
disintegrates.
It just like explodes if you look at it wrong. So the S3 is basically 2.5 years of me poking Zong, being like, "Hey, hey, 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 I need a 3.5 fucking glass nylon or a polycarbonate prop. Give me a 3.5 gram glass polycarbonate prop. Give me, give me, give me, give me." He's like, "It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible." For 2 years, I was poking him, and finally, he's like, "Hey, I got something. I'm gonna send it over." And I was like, "This is fucking dope. This is the new prop. Make it pink and green. Let's go." S3. So that's where the S3 kind of came from. It's just, it ended up being a new material that he had never used before, and it was able to be lighter. And he went with a thinner profile on the prop, like the prop surface as well, to get it a little bit lighter, and a thinner hub. All things that had been suggested, but up until that material were impossible because it was too brittle. The previous material was too brittle. So yeah, there's a lot going into A lot of the shit that has come out in the last couple years has just been something that I've wanted for like more than that, like 3 years or 4 years since the OG days. And I just I'm like, I want that. Give me.
Just
I
keep
know it's
pestering.
impossible, but give me it. And then finally someone's like, fuck. All right. I'm fucking over it. I'm tired of this guy poking me. Like, let's just fucking make this thing. So
Plummet says, Steele, I love how you rip. No fucking idea how you do what you do, but I appreciate it and motivates me. I have to agree with him on that.
yeah, I was reading that comment. It was funny right as you were reading it. Well, thanks, Plummet. I don't know. I just fucking have fun, man. Go out and fly. I don't get to fly as much as I used to, but I think the weather right now is just kind of putting a damper on the fact that I don't want to go fly by myself, and then it's raining, and then people are busy. There's just
We've
a
had
lot
a
of
lot of
shit.
rain in the southeast. I'm in Tennessee. We've had a shit ton of rain over the last couple months. It's
Yeah.
been terrible.
Yeah, it's been pretty gnarly. Dang them flat
So
right.
let's see. Let's get back to some of our original questions. Tony Briz wants to know, when is the Ethics Hobby Mat coming out? Can you talk about that?
That's like an inside joke that
Mm,
it's never coming out. But yeah, never. Sorry. I don't know what the fuck you want me to do. I'm not gonna make a mat and put
you can't
ethics on it.
refine a mat, right?
I mean, you can, but I'm not going to. That's just
You
this
put some
little.
magnets in it or something.
Yeah, I just like wood, man. If I could do anything, I'd sell a wood tabletop that had like burnt ethics into it, and it would be pretty dope.
That'd
But
be dope if it had like little compartmentalized trays for your screws and shit. I'd probably buy that.
yeah, but how you gonna ship that? That's another problem with cool ass
Yeah,
products.
good
Even
point.
our backpacks, dude. Those things are such a pain in the ass to ship. Like we probably spent more money shipping those things than we have. I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
It's a
You
nice
would think
bag
about
though.
you would think it would be cheap to ship, but no. No, it's like $30 every time. Doesn't matter if it's coming from, Atlanta to California or I don't know. It's just expensive. It's
What were
expensive.
some of the hurdles refining the backpack?
Uh Getting the right materials to get the cost where we wanted it and still be good.
Still have a good
Uh,
quality feel to it.
Yeah, that's kind of like originally I was shooting for $119. That was like when I saw. So I'll give you a quick backstory on that bag. So when I started flying FPV, I used to carry around like these big ass suitcases with all my shit in it, and I had like this plucked out foam that I would pluck it out and like make my radio spot and make my goggle spot, and I did carrying around. I looked like, I don't know, Dennis from fucking Jurassic Park, like carrying around all these briefcases and shit. I don't know if he does that. I just remind that dude, the guy from fucking Jurassic Park that gets eaten by that thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He just Newman. He just seems like he'd be carrying around some briefcases. But that's who I like. That's who I think of when I think of myself carrying those stupid ass cases around. So I went to REI one day, which is Recreational Equipment Incorporated. It's like a chain in the United States where we can go. It's a co-op, and you go buy outdoorsy equipment. And I went in there and I found this bag called the REI Trail 25. It was like $69, light nylon, like a hiking bag. It's like 25-liter internal capacity. Had a lot of really cool features, and I ended up buying some soft, what do you call them? Like lunch boxes. There's like cooler boxes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I bought a bunch of cooler boxes, and the radio that I had, which was the Tranus, just happened to fucking fit in one of them. And then I made the other one my battery bag. And if you compare the two, their exact specification for sizing of whatever our transmitter bag and our lipo bag are. So it's exactly what I was using from 5 years ago, just changed and modified into a way that suits kind of more FPV rather than food. I like modified those things when I got them too. I like put foam in the bottom of them underneath the nylon to kind of protect stuff a little bit more. And so, anyways, I went out and bought that, and that's kind of how I had been rocking my bag since day one. I had a big kind of cooler in the bottom, which is like the same size as the bag that I use now for my lipos. So I put that in the bottom, and then I'd put my radio in the top with like the same exact thing, transmitter bag, and then I'd have my goggle case on the side, and it all just fit in that bag like perfectly, and it was nothing I didn't need. Like the worst thing about FPV, I think, and just in general hobbies, is when you get out to a spot and you just got too much shit. It's like someone going out with like 20 lenses to take a picture, and like they want to go on a hike and they want to bring like 20 lenses with them. Sorry, you're going to take one lens. You're not going to take your 35 mil 1.2. You're going to take some fucking stupid zoom lens that you hate, but it's just the most practical lens to take with you. Um, so that's kind of the idea of where that bag came from. And there were a bunch of people, others making different bags that were kind of more like, hey, this bag fits everything you need, and plus your vlogging gear, and plus all this other shit, and it takes your charger, and who the fuck carries all that shit with them? So it was kind of, there was no one that had simplified it yet. And then there's a guy named Mike that works at Think Tank. Well, I think he's like a part owner. I don't know exactly his title, but he's the guy that we go through to get our Think Tank bags made. And he made the FPV Session, which was kind of his take on the REI Trail 25. And I remember him hitting me up and being like, hey, do you want to try one of these? And I was just like, nah, like my bag's fine. Like I like my bag, and it's also cheaper because at the end of the day, I'm kind of looking out for myself and also looking out for people that are trying to make the same or trying to, get what I have. Like they're trying to make their own setups. Like if I use that bag, then all of a sudden the same exact bag that pretty much does the same exact stuff is now 100 and I think they were like $190 or something like that instead of a $69 bag. So it was, a little bit looking out for people that, are trying to copy what I'm doing. And unfortunately, a lot of people in Europe and Asia couldn't get the REI 1225 because it's just not something you can get worldwide. But um, I ended up getting one. And this was late in the game. Like I think Eric was using it for a long time. And I saw his one day and I was like, oh shit, that thing's pretty fucking rad. And I had Mike send me one and I ended up switching over and I kind of fell in love with the session bag, but I didn't use it in the way that it was intended. Originally, he put all this like weird Velcro shit inside of it, and you would like pull it open, and it would have Velcro compartments that
Like
you would
slots.
put your stuff in, and that's kind of how he set it up. And I always like he always makes fun of me. He calls my shit a yard sale because I got all these different bags in a bag, and I open a bag, and then I open another bag, and then shit just like ends up everywhere. And that's just kind of how I like to roll when I go to a spot. I like each of my things to be in its own bag so it's protected. And I know like if I want to take it out at TSA, hey, this is my radio. Hey, this is my lipos. Hey, this is my goggles. Like it's just a little bit easier that way instead of just sending the whole bag through. And if someone were to open it and tip it upside down, it just fucking explode. So, anyways, I got the session, kind of fucked around with it for a little bit, ended up liking it way more than the bag that I was using. And I was like, hey, we should make this a bag, but I can't justify the price being, 190 bucks or whatever it was. I think it was 175, 180. So I was like, let's try to shoot for like 119. He's like, that's going to be really hard with the materials that we're currently using because they're really expensive. So after about 6 months of back and forth, trying different prototypes, trying different materials and all this shit, we got the price down, but the price at 119 to where it was going to be profitable in any sense, considering the amount of time that we had spent back and forth. It just wasn't, the materials just weren't there. Like they were good and they would last, but they just didn't look that good. Like I want the bag to look badass and perform. And that was kind of the trade-off. Like if you wanted it to look good and you wanted it to perform, then you had to pay more. If you wanted it to just look good, then you're paying a lot. And if you wanted it to perform, then you could kind of get away with it being a little cheaper. But at the end of the day, we kind of cut the price a little bit, like ended up doing like 149, and refined it by adjusting some of the zippers and some of the pockets on the side and just changing the materials all over the bag so that's more ripstop nylon, a little lighter weight. And then honestly, the bag is very much similar to the session. If you were to put one side by side, I don't know if you could point out a few differences, but it's slightly larger. It's slightly, it's like not as, the session is kind of like this, and the R bag is more of a dome instead of like an arch.
Like
I
a
don't know. It's
turtle
kind
shell.
yeah, it balloons up a little bit more where the session was kind of a flatter bag. I don't know. It's just like subtle shit that probably nobody's going to notice. They're going to be like, oh, they just fucking recolored the session. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much what we did. But if you really watched, we went through like 6 prototypes to get to that point with all different types of materials and ended up stretching out the bottom. And I don't know, a little more went into it than just saying, hey, let's make that green and sell it.
Right. Recognize FPV wants to know, how did ethics get its name?
Oh man, people are just going to the bait store and opening
You don't
worms
have to
up.
go there. You don't have to go there.
I mean, I'll just give you like a brief synopsis. So after 2 years of working with a company I won't name, I had started working with Trappy earlier in the first year. After the first year, I started working with him on my motors, and in the first year, I think we sold and like to be honest, Trappy since the beginning, he's always respected what I have to say, but he didn't really respect it in a way that like he didn't understand my business mind. I guess he didn't trust it really. Like he'd be like, "Yeah, that's cool," but like at the end of the day, he just kind of do what he wanted. And then at some point, like in the mix of me working with that other company, he was like, "Hey, I heard you were trying to do this, and they're not really, I worked with team, or I forget, I worked with um, Get FPV after Drone Nationals 2015. We went on Drone Worlds, which we went to Hawaii, and I met Tim Nielsen from Get FPV, and I talked to him there, and we were flying Cobras at the time. This was late 2015 actually. And I was like, Tim, I want a motor. I want a pro motor. And he was like, okay, what do you want? He's like, I want a 2205, 2400 kV. And I want it to be purple. I want it to have ceramic bearings. And I don't know if any of this is sounding familiar to anybody. I've
Yeah,
told this story
yeah,
before.
slightly.
Um, and anyways, I worked on that motor with them for a year, and I got it and I put it on my quad finally after like a year. Tim went to China, opened up his own factory. This is from what I know. This is what happened. He was buying motors from T Motor. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he was realizing that it would be more cost effective for them to open up their own motor factory and for them to make their own motors. So he went to China, opened up his own factory. My motor was the first motor that was ever produced in that factory. It was a 2205, which was a stator size that was not available at the time. It had to be like custom sourced, and it was a single wind, which was unavailable at the time as well. And it was ceramic bearings, which had not been done before. And the color, I spent probably a good 6 to 10 hours of my time on the phone trying to get that color right. And Tim ended up having to go to China and actually sit there with the anodizer and sit with me on Skype, and we got the color right. That's how the color got that dark. Because if every other time they're like, "Oh, this purple," and they just send that like generic shiny purple that's anodized. So anyways, that all went through. Towards the end of that year, they sent me the final first prototype that I had ever gotten. I went out, I put it on a quad. And at this time you had to like unsolder your ESCs individually and like cut the wires real short. It was a pain in the fucking ass to put motors on a quad. And I went outside and full throttle, all the magnets fell out. This is a motor I've been waiting on for like a year. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? He's like, oh, just super glue the magnets back in. I was like, no, you send me another fucking motor. He's like, yeah, we're almost going to production. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm not putting my name on any of this shit. Like, I haven't even flown it because I can't test it because the motor's magnets just fell out. So they sent me another set of motors. The magnets fell out. I was like, what the fuck? And they're like, oh, yeah, we're still working on the magnet glue. I was like, okay, we'll figure out the magnet glue before we go into production. He's like, no, we're going into production in like a week. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm like abandoning this project. And he's like, no, like we can figure it out. I was like, nope, fucking done. I don't give a shit. Like I'm not putting my name on something that I don't care how long I've worked on it. I'm not putting my name on something where the magnets just fucking fall out the bottom. I haven't even flown it. Like I don't even know if it works. I ended up flying them finally. Like I super glued some magnets back in and tested it, and it wasn't the power that I wanted because we had been flying 2206s now. Like after that, I think incident, he was like, "I'll give all the pilots that went on this trip 20 motors of 2206, 2300 kV," and we were all like, "No, that's too much power." We all got it. Everybody fell in love with it, and 2206 became like the standard stator size from that day on. But yeah, 2205 didn't work anymore for me, and ultimately, that motor got picked up by Schizo, and that became his V2 motor. Which another thing that pissed me off in the back in the day when I was making that motor, John found out that I was making a motor with Lumineer, which was one of his sponsors, and he was like, "Oh fuck that, I want a motor." So he made a motor, which was his first motor, which is basically just a re-KV'd version of the 2204 that was out, and they just changed the color to gray, which was a generic color that you could get. And that was his first motor. So he was technically the first person to have a branded motor, but it was kind of to basically beat me to the punch. It was I don't know. I was pretty pissed at the time, but the past is the past, and John and I are good friends now. But then Trappy ended up working with me. We had like 40 motors made, and I tried I think 6 of them after we got the
They were all
test.
different too, right?
They're all different stator sizes and different windings and different KVs. And I basically said, hey, make a bunch of motors. These are the criteria that I want. I want low amp draw, and I want like low end torque. Basically, I want it to be efficient and have low end torque. We kind of settled on around the 2206, 2306 with anywhere from a 2200 to about a 2400 kV. And at the end of the day, I settled on a motor, but the magnets, I didn't realize at the time that magnets make a pretty big difference in how much torque the motor has, and also how much amp draw it has. The stronger the magnet, the closer the magnet is, it can be efficient or less efficient depending on the combination of those two things. So I ended up going with an N48, which is like it's like a lower powered magnet instead of an N52, which is what everybody was using at the time. So I went with a lower powered magnet on my silks. And the idea at the time for version 1 motor was to have a silk bell and a stout bell that you could put on the stator. So the silk bell would have N48s in it, and the stout bell would have N52s. And with the swap of a bell, you could go from like, I think it was 900 grams of thrust to like 1100 grams of thrust or something. It wasn't that drastic, but it was like 80 grams of thrust per motor. So you're almost gaining, like 32 or 320 extra grams of thrust by just swapping the bells. And that was the idea for the version 1 motor. But since we ended up going with a C clip, that it was supposed to be malleable, so you could take off the bell and put on a new one because there was no such thing as a screw on bell at the time. That started a whole C clip debacle where the fucking C clips were too tight and they would just pop off and the motor bell would fly off. It was a fucking nightmare. But yeah, we got through it, and Trappy started to realize that, hey, Steele, he can sell shit, I guess.
I'd say you put together the fact that you had a pretty big influence, and then the fact that your products were going to sell pretty good.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I didn't know they were going to sell as well as they did. I figured people liked what I did, but the formula is really what I'm always about. Like, it's not necessarily like my particular product. Like, I'm not trying to just shill out Mr. Steel motors. Like, I don't give a shit if people are just buying Mr. Steel motors and putting them on whatever. Like, at the end of the day, I would prefer them have like this formula. Like, that motor works really well with my exact formula. Like, it works well with other stuff, and people have great success in all applications of putting that motor on stuff and running it on 6 cell, or even running it on 4 cell if you're running the silks with the 2300 kV stator. But like, my standpoint is if you're going to make something, like, either figure it out on your own and create a formula that works really well for you, or modify someone else's formula. Because that's kind of what makes these things fly well, is like the long drawn out process of getting something to fly the way that you want it to fly, but not everybody knows how they want it to fly. So you should get like a good baseline first, and then be like, oh shit, like that flies really fucking well. And it flies really well for, maybe that guy, but for me, I want it to be a little less sensitive. So I might put a lower pitch prop on it, or I might go to a lower KV motor, or I might add some weight to the quad, make it a little bit more durable because I crashed too much, or I don't know. There's just like a lot of things that you can adjust on something that's already kind of developed. I think, at least. I don't know. Everyone that I've ever met that had flown my exact quad, or I let fly my quad, they're always like, holy shit. Like, I didn't even know quads flew like that. And now it like changes their perception on and it's not even that I'm trying to sell you my quad. It's just like, this is what a quad flies like once it's really well dialed in. Like, I've been tuning this shit for 6 years now.
yeah,
Like,
you've
this is
been
what
putting work in several different areas for a while now.
Yeah. So it just flies well, and it's cool. Like, when I meet people like out of the country, and I'll just be like, "Hey, you want to fly my quad?" And they're like, "No, no, no." They're like scared that they're gonna break it or something. I'm like, "No, just fucking fly it." And they're like, "This is amazing." It's like, okay, well, I
So
mean,
circle back around. How did ethics get its name then? Just by you? I mean, kind of your
so
bad experience.
when I worked with that other company, and I left when I left and I created ethics. the idea was to basically redo what I thought was wrong with Rotor Riot, which is a company. And I was going to do it my way that I thought was um, a better platform instead of just creating a social media outlet, like actually having products to stand behind. And yeah, it didn't end up working out the way that I thought it was going to. That's why now it's only me, Eric, and Trappy. It used to be like Snake was a 25% owner as well, and Noelle was like actually a huge part in creating of or at least getting us off the ground. Like she helped a lot. And at the end of the day, like I just I'm kind of a I'm not a hard ass, but like if you're gonna be a part of something and expect to gain a lot out of it, like you got to put in some work.
Right.
I'm not gonna give shit out for free. And that was right around the time that Snake, his house ended up burning down,
Caught
and
on fire. Yeah.
he's going through a lot of rough times. And he was not psyched. Like his whole priority list changed from flying FPV and doing it as a career to, hey, I'm gonna, marry the love of my life that I've been living with forever. He kind of reevaluated his life at that point, and it just kind of didn't really fit. And it was hard for me. Like I put it off for weeks. I was like, dude, I gotta tell this guy that I can't. Like I gotta basically not fire him, but I can't have him be a huge part of direction in this company because it just doesn't he's not here anymore. He's doing his own shit. He's like climbing and trying to figure out his whole life. So I ended up trying to help him raise as much money as I could. I think he raised like somewhere around 40 or $50,000. And then at that point we were just like, come back when you're ready. But right now I can't have you as a 25%, you know, develop or decision maker in something that you're just not a part of every day. So it ended up just being, Eric, myself, and Trappy. Trappy funds the things, and I
You
fund
come
the
up with the
things.
ideas, and Trappy puts the weight behind it.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. I'm the marketing side. Eric is marketing side. He does a lot of the online stuff as well. But I guess to answer your question, where the name came from, it was kind of like a fuck you to working for free for 2 years, even though it's not totally for free. I did get to travel a lot of cool places,
You
but
paid an exposure, bro.
I did, yeah, paid an exposure.
Let's switch it up a little. Reaper X wants to know: are you gonna get the Cybertruck?
Already ordered it, bro. I'm gonna get the first one. I ordered that shit within 20 minutes of it launching, so hopefully I'll have it immediately. My goal, like, I don't know, like in my life, I never thought I would be able to justify ever owning something like a Porsche GT3 RS or something like that. Like that's kind of the level that I want. Like, and I don't usually buy things unless I can afford them. Like I hate debt. I don't like owing anybody anything, so I don't like to live without outside of my means. So I buy what I can afford. And ultimately, I would like to have a Cybertruck and a GT3 RS hanging out in the garage and the van. That would be like the next step. Like I have my Exige and my Model 3 right now, and that's fucking dope. And I'm super excited to have these things and be able to play with them and, do what I can. But at some point, I'm going to have to fucking settle down with some lady and do something with a child. I would like that, but I can't have those cars and have fun like that unless I'm just fucking baller,
You can have the
which hopefully.
Cybertruck and have a kid,
Yeah, well, GT3 RS has got a back seat. Like I could strap something down in
like
there.
a jump seat.
No, it doesn't. The RS version doesn't. It's got carpet and a cage, but maybe in the front seat, you can turn that shit backwards, turn the airbag off. It'll be fine. Just don't have more than one.
Skadoosh wants to know: would you ever use props as chopsticks to eat Chinese food?
I already did it. I already did it. He gave me those shits, man.
Done,
I was
been
like,
done.
he gave me some like 6-inch weird props. I got a little fucking bowl of noodles and I had nothing to eat them with. So he was like, "Hey, here's some props," like handing them to me like it was a joke, and I just fucking used them as chopsticks.
Use what you had.
Yep.
507 would like to know: what tips do you have for filming car chasing events?
What kind? Drifting.
I would
So
guess that, yeah, I would guess drifting. He says, should he set his GoPro to wide instead of super view or anything else tip wise?
I typically shoot in wide because in super view you can't ever get close enough to justify it ever looking the way that you want it to. Super view is great if you're getting extremely close. Wide is like kind of the safe zone. Like you can get within 3 feet of a car and it still looks like you're right all up on it. I mean, 3 feet's pretty close, but if you're in super view, you got to like touch the car to look like you're close to it. So I think like drifting is very easy just to use wide on, and always be aware of your surroundings. That's really like when I'm flying for shoots like that, I'm never looking at the subject. I'm looking around the subject to figure out what's around it so that I can fly closer or farther away or dodge if I need to dodge or something like that. And I also take into account what's behind me based on what I remember being back there when I flew up onto it. So the only time it ever gets super sketchy is when you have like tandem cars and you're on the front car and you got to worry about the rear car. So you just got to know to balloon up when they do transitions because they're usually like right on there, and you can get taken out by a transition like a fender coming across. But for the most part, like nobody's really getting that close. So it's always easiest to be on the outside of the car for some reason. Like flying on the inside of a drifting car is good, but you always get beat up by dirty air. So I don't know. You've probably heard it in some of my raw videos. Like I'll get behind a drift car and you can hear all the aero spitting up all this dirty air, and you can hear it in the props. It's like freaking out. So it's if you're gonna be behind a car, be really low so that you're not getting hit by too much dirty air. If you're kind of like right at that rear window mark, you're gonna get hit with all kinds of dirty air coming off the spoiler. So yeah, just put it in wide and get close, but know what your surroundings are rather than focusing on getting close to that car because you will crash if you focus on the subject.
He asked another great question. What are some things video directors have asked you to do that you had to refuse?
Um, I mean, I'm trying to think. I've done some gnarly shit that video directors. I think a lot of times it's not even that I have to refuse it. It's just like physically impossible. They'll be like, "Hey, I want you to fly this drone, like under this guy's arm and then through this window, and then I want you to chase this car doing 130 miles an hour." And it's like, well, first of all, that's like two different types of drones, and that shot is impossible with the type of drone that I brought to this shot, assuming that we were going to do this type of shot. And then I suggest something, and then we end up shooting that. So a lot of the times, it's not even that I have to refuse it because I don't want to do it or it's unsafe, but it's just a lot of times that it's not even possible. Like a lot of people think these things do like 150 miles an hour. So they're like, all right, there's gonna be this BMW that rips by here at like 140. I want you to fly in reverse, like right in front of the driver, and then I want you to pull out and then fly over to that island over there and like dive through some trees. And you're like, dude, this is what do you think this is? Fucking Grand Theft Auto? Like this is not a chase cam in a video game. Like it works, but it's not that good. So yeah. I think the coolest thing that I have been told to do that I didn't refuse was fly through a window. Um, I was on a BMW shoot in Mexico City, and they wanted me to fly through a pane glass window, and I was like, "What? Like, I don't want to fly through a window. I'm gonna break my shit." And they're like, "Oh, we'll have a pyro guy like blow the window out like right before you fly through it." I was like, "That's not gonna work." So, moral of the story: it worked once. I flew through it 5 times and it only worked once. The first time I hit it and the guy didn't even so when I asked the guy, I was like, "Do you have tempered glass in there? So it's gonna shatter?" He's like, "Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We got tempered glass in there." I was like, "Okay. I hope it fucking shatters." Because when that shit blows, if it's not tempered glass, if it's standard glass and I hit this, it's just gonna fucking break my shit. So I flew into it at like 30 miles an hour. It was like a pane glass, like a garage door window, like that
Right?
size. It was like that size, but it was like a warehouse window. It was like 2 pane glass, and it was supposed to have a charge on it. And I was like, it didn't look any different than any of the other panels. It was kind of a big panel with a bunch of glass panels on it. And I hit the middle one that had a slow motion camera on it, and he hit the charge, and you can watch it in slow motion. I hit the window, quad breaks the glass, but it breaks not in a tempered glass way because it wasn't tempered glass. It just shatters and is all like spiky. The quad bounces
Shards.
off of it. It like bounces off, and then like half a second later, the dude hits the charge. Shit blows up. Nothing happens. And then I like land the quad with like bent props because it just basically bent the props. And then we tried again. He hits the charge too late. So I hit the glass, went through it. Then he blows it up. And then one time he blew it up too early. Like the fucking window just exploded, turned into a big, like, shattered glass kind of wall. And then I like crashed through it. And one of my props got bent. So I didn't fly away. And then I think it was like the fourth take, everything kind of went to plan and it blew up like right as my prop touched it. The quad flew through it and I flew away. I don't even know if they used that shot, but it was kind of crazy. We tried to get a reshot of it like 3 or 4 times after that. And it was like not happening. Every time the prop would get bent. So it was kind of cool.
You
What
got
else?
any plans to hit any events up this summer?
Other than this protest, I don't know. I really want to plan an event of my own here in Atlanta. But that's a lot of fucking work. I've been talking about it for a while.
IO?
Is it at the AMA headquarters?
Probably, yeah. It usually is.
I fucking hate that place. But I probably will go. I enjoy going to IO just because of the people that go.
Yeah,
Like
I get to meet the people.
it's one of those events that you don't even go for the fucking racing or the flying. You just go because it's like an event where people go. It's kind of like if we held a drone conference. Like nobody's flying, but we should just do that. We should just do an FPV conference. Like who the fuck cares about a flying event? Nobody fucking flies at flying events anyways. Just do like an FPV conference where people just fly all over from the world and then they get to fly in the city that the conference is in. That sounds kind of fun. Maybe I'll do
I'm
that.
down for that.
Just like a 3-day conference or some shit where we get together and have like speakers. We'll just get like random dudes that have no fucking idea what they're talking about and try to get them to explain FPV. What is
Classic.
this? Tell this whole room full of people that know what they're talking about something that you know nothing about. That sounds fun.
Are you going to rip at Rosedale Park Sunday after the protest? Vampire wants to know.
What the hell is Rosedale Park? Probably.
Must be a park that you can rip at up there, I guess.
I mean, I'm bringing my stuff. I don't know if I will, but probably. I plan on coming back on Sunday, but just depends. I'm in the van, so I'll I mean, that's the plan. I'm gonna sleep in that shit. I got a heater in there, so
That's
we'll
what
see.
you got it for, right? That's what you built it for. I watched you build that thing, man. It's sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Yeah, I'll see what it's all about. Is it 45 minutes north? Because that's not gonna be cool. That'll add another hour to my drive home.
Yeah, Dragoneer says north.
Crap. Whatever. I'll figure it out. I'll probably do something.
Recognize has got another good question. He says, Steele, I was told to be a good freestyle pilot, I need to practice racing more. Would you agree, or do you just go with your own flow?
He was told to be a good freestyle pilot, but he needs to practice racing.
Racing more, yeah. I guess, do you think racing helps you freestyle would be the easiest way to break that down?
I would say no. Some of the best racers in the world are not very good freestylers. And that's kind of like, I guess, the moral of that story. Like, I'm not the best. I suck ass at racing. And I'm not necessarily the best pilot at all when you come down to like a technical standpoint. Like, I can't hit that gate at 500 miles an hour. Like, that's not me. But if you want something done the first try and you want it to look a certain way and like be aggressive, I don't know. That's kind of my style. I just hit shit with aggression and go in and fly and have fun. I can flow around if I want to, but I just prefer to be as aggressive as possible. That's kind of my MO on hitting spots, is come in with aggression and shred. Ripping balls. That is my fucking shit. Like, that's an Atlanta-based term. Everyone that uses the term rip, that shit originated here. Ripping
Hell yeah.
balls, man.
Speaking of ripping, Hawkeye wants to know if we're going back to the FAA stuff, will you still rip if the laws change, or will you comply?
Well, depends. I think the moral of the story is if what I'm currently doing is illegal after the law passes, and I can't operate commercially anymore because, from my understanding, if the law passes as it's currently written, all custom built drones will be obsolete and not be able to be flown because they won't be able to accommodate a remote ID. Now, there are people that are saying, oh, well, you'll be able to put on these remote ID retrofits. Like I've seen in a couple groups where people are saying that you can like buy these little tiny things and put them on the drone and like it sends a signal back to your radio and then you can be connected to the internet. Like from what I understand, unless it's built in, like you're not going to be able to fly without remote ID. So custom built drones are going to be basically fucked. Like you're fucked. If you build a drone and it's over 250 grams and you plan on flying it commercially, then you're fucked. And even if you fly under 250 grams and you fly it commercially and it doesn't have remote ID, you're fucked. So to me, I'm not going to be doing commercial gigs anymore, probably because there's no way I can comply with an FPV drone. Because if you fly under 250, it still has to have remote ID, which you can't do because it's a custom built drone. And who the hell is going to put a remote ID piece on a 250-gram drone and be able to get good footage with it? I will say some of those DK's fucking GoPros and those little tiny Beta 85 things that is it Ramirez? Rimzio? Dude in Italy. I've like met the dude in person. He made the Hoover. Isn't it called the Hoover?
I
Fuck,
know who you're
man.
talking about, but I can't remember his name.
I'm breaking all the rules right now. I mean,
Yeah,
fucking
it's gonna be hard as hell to get.
Rimsler. Rimsler
Yeah,
is his name.
Rimsler, Dragon Ears, no.
Yeah, and he makes this thing. What's it called? He calls it the Hoover, I think. A little Dyson. I was all the shit was like slightly off. The Dyson, not the Hoover. The Dyson. Little tiny ass like Beta 85. Like that shit is so cool. Like I'm about to build one. I love the fact that he's kind of taken that upon himself to like make his own little tiny baby drones with DK's GoPros. Um, but I think aside from that and flying indoors, that's the other thing. Like, are we going to be able to fly indoors? Because if that's the case, then maybe everything will be all indoor stuff now, or all of it out of the country. But at this point, there's so many people worldwide that do this stuff. Like nobody's going to hire me to go to Spain. Like they'll get Andrew Yu to do it, or
Right.
they'll fly in Benoit or somebody. So it's like it would be over essentially unless everything was shot in Mexico, which I don't even know if that. I think technically that falls under FAA because I don't fucking know, dude. When I was in Mexico, they were like, "Do you have your night waiver?" Like, what? We're in fucking Mexico, dude. But I don't know. I don't know the rules of Mexico. I would assume they have their own rules, but maybe they just don't, and they follow
It's gonna
FAA.
crush people like you and me because I do the repairs statewide for Armaton, and then I build the Ichabod Junior kits for Team Black Sheep. Armaton, I doubt will be big enough to get on the list of approved manufacturers,
Yeah.
and Team Black Sheep, same thing. I'm building the Ichabod kits. It's a home built kit. It's not something that's pre built from a approved manufacturer. So there goes both of my sources of income right out the window.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's going to go away, but as far as a highly commercialized, like, I don't know if you'll be completely shut down because you're not directly flying. Like you're still relying on sales of other people buying that are flying. And
Right.
if I have my way, I'm going to continue to fly and make videos. Just I'm going to have my my buddy do it instead of me, and he's never going to be showing up on camera. So
Yeah, right.
the guy flying is not going
You're
to
just
be breaking
spotting
the
for
law.
him.
I'm just spotting for him. So that's kind of going to be my rule. But I'm going to make videos, dude. I don't give a fuck. Something I'm going to make, like when
Good.
I spoke to I spoke to one of the FAA guys a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like if you lose your 107 or you lose your certification, you cannot make any YouTube videos at all." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because you're technically benefiting from the fact that you make YouTube videos about drones." And I was like, "Okay, so you're telling me like if I make a video of me flying a tiny whoop in my house and I post it on YouTube, and then someone buys something from an affiliate link in the description, then I am at fault and I can be, fined for that, for flying a drone illegally because I don't have a Part 107 and it's a commercial operation. That was pretty much what he said. And I was like, that sounds like fucking straight up bullshit, but that's okay because I can play that game too. So
Right.
if it comes down to it, I got friends that fly really well and I'll commentate.
There you go.
Um,
So this question you may or may not want to answer, but Bilky, I think is his name. He has have you tried flying while high?
Fly with Tony. Eric, have I tried flying high? No, actually. No, never. I've never done anything other than fly drunk, and it was that one time.
On that one video with that
Yep.
one company.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. It's funny because I didn't smoke ever until I was like, I had never even touched anything until about like late 26, like when I was like 27, so 2017. I'm 29, by the way. A lot of people are like, quit fucking dyeing your hair, hipster. Quit fuck. How you're like 45. What? Like, I don't know. I'm 29 years old. I was born in 1990. My birthday is next week. Like, chill out. My hair is real. I'm just gray. Um, but I guess to answer your story, like I'd never smoked anything ever until about 27. And then I tried it a couple times and tried some edibles. And I fucking like, I have such a hit or miss experience with anything other than like one or two puffs on a joint that I just don't even do it. I feel like it's like a waste of money, to be honest. Like that's why I don't partake in alcoholic things. I just think it's a fucking waste of money. Like I am not going to come home after, going to the gym or doing whatever I'm going to do and then relax on the couch having a beer. That's just not what I think of as relaxing. Like me, I would cook a nice dinner and like not have my phone on and fucking chill and watch something that's kind of mind numbing, like some kind of movie that I enjoy or something like that. Like that to me is a relaxing night, not having a beer. But I do agree. Like I'm not opposed to alcohol. I'm not opposed to weed. Like I have no problem with people that do it. And I ultimately just have no interest in doing it as a regular
Recreation.
recreational. Yeah.
No
So no, I
worries. I
haven't.
respect that.
But I would try it. Like if I was somewhere and someone was like, "Hey man, you want to hit this?" I'll be like, "Sure." And then if I was flying, whatever. But I just haven't yet. I don't. I got a lot of friends that smoke. I got a lot of friends that smoke and fly, but never has the occasion came up where they were like, "Hey, do you want to smoke and then fly?" So
Bilky also asks, have you ever been to Europe?
I've been to Europe many times. Yeah, all over. I've been to UK, Spain, France, Italy, Ukraine, Germany, uh, Sweden,
Sweden.
Switzerland. I've been a lot of places. I'm trying to think of where else I've been. Yeah, a lot of
Konasti
Ibiza.
says,
Mhm.
bullshit, I got Steele high as fuck and he ripped all the balls. He just forgot where the footage was.
I mean, maybe, maybe I don't remember, but maybe you got a date on that because I might be able to remember, but I don't think I have. I don't think I've ever smoked and flown, and I'm not ashamed to admit that if I did, I forgot, but I don't think so.
Recognize wants to know, have you ever found a winner for the signed backpack giveaway?
Yeah, man, we already did that. We went live on Instagram, gave it away. This guy,
Sweet.
trying to fucking remember his name now. He was like a dude. He lives in Central America. Fuck, Eric knows his name. Damn it, what a dick. I don't fucking know, dude.
It's
Can't
hard to
remember.
remember, dude. I'm sure you get a lot of interactions with a lot of people.
I try. I try to respond to everything on Instagram, but it's so hard. It's so hard to like keep up with it all. Like I just got logged onto the ethics Instagram and it's like fucking blown up. It's
That's a good
toasted
thing,
right
though.
now. Uh yeah. I mean I will say that I do respond a lot more on social media than a lot of my peers, and that I take a pride in. Because it sucks when send someone a message like a heartfelt email or something like that. I will say it is harder when you send a longer email. If someone sends me like a message that's like 4 paragraphs long, like I will be less likely to respond to that than something that's a paragraph or half a sentence or something. I respond to all kinds of shit, but those like long, really heartfelt, like I feel like I don't have enough time to make the right response. It's not that I don't have time to message them back. But if they send me this email about how they're, grandfather was in World War II and flew these planes, and then they got into RC, and they tell me this like crazy story, and I say cool or some shit, like that's not cool. I'd rather just not reply. you know, it's kind
No
of
doubt.
that's a hard situation to be in.
Tenacious D won the bag, Conasty says.
Is it Tenacious? Shoot, I remember his name being Tenacious. Yeah, let's see.
Maybe he's just
Anyway,
fucking with us. He's probably just fucking with us.
no, it's not. It's Tenacious. There it is.
Plummet.
Tenacious FPV is his name. He's part of Project Zen. Yeah.
Hell
I don't
yeah.
know.
What sounds like somebody that's going to put it to use.
Yeah. Yeah, he's cool. He's a cool guy.
Plummet says, I'm going to be that guy. Steele, have you tried Flight 1 Falco X?
Nope.
I'll kiss.
Don't give a fuck, man. I've flown Flight 1 and I've flown Beta Flight. And I guess to sum it up, I haven't flown the newest stuff from either of those companies. But at the end of the day, it's kind of all similar now. And the real difference is very light stick feel, and also how much filtering is going on, and also user interface and reliability. And I have never had a problem with reliability out of a KISS FC. The only ESC problems I've ever had were the KISS 18 amps. Everyone says, oh no, the KISS 32s and the KISS 24s caught on fire. Not for me. And then the KISS 25 amp, I have not killed one of those either. So I don't know, man. I've seen like people message me all the time. They're like, look, shit caught on fire. My whole quad burned to the ground. It's like, well, I don't know what you did. I'm not saying that you did something wrong, but I crash a lot and I fly a lot and I haven't had that problem. Maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know. It's a pretty damn reliable setup for me. That's why I use it. If it was shitty and I had to I hate building. I hate building shit. So if I had to fucking rebuild shit the worst is when you have to rebuild. It's not even the new build shit is good because it's like working on a brand new car. Everything's new. You know exactly what it's supposed to do. You know how it's going to work. It goes together perfectly because it's brand new. When shit's old and crunchy, you got to cut heat shrink off and there's like
Yeah, dude, I
grass
fucking
ingrained in
totally
there.
feel you, bro.
That shit, so I hate it. So I try to do that as least amount as I can. So people are always like, yeah, well, Steel probably burns like 5 of these a week. It's like, if that was the case, I wouldn't even fly FPV anymore. I would be done. But yeah,
Snoopy wants to, going back to the drifting chasing, he wants to know, how do motors temps fare when you're in dirty air? Does it make a difference?
you're never in it long enough to justify it making a difference. I mean, if you're chasing a dude, if you're chasing like cars down the back straight of some racetrack and you're at full throttle and you're just in that dirty air the whole time, then yeah, you might have a problem. But for the most part, it's just like a switchback or, their entry and you're getting caught in the dirty air for like maybe 2 to 3 seconds at most. And then you're in clean again. So it's not going to affect you unless you just got some overtuned quad that's already on the limits. And then that's already a problem.
Kind of asking for it, right?
Yeah.
He also says he thought ripping balls was a Steel thing. Did it come from somewhere else?
So it's funny. We were talking about things earlier with Schizo and how he took a lot of shit from me, and I've took ripping balls from him. I'm going to say that. We were out at a location one day. It was just John and I, and we were like flying real fucking hard. And I remember, I think I came back from crashing or something like that. I had like gone to get my quad, and I came back, and I think John had said, "Did you rip?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Did you fucking rip?" And I was like, yeah, I was fucking ripping." And he's like, "But did you rip balls?" And I was like, yeah, I ripped some balls." And then from that moment on, like ripping balls was just a constant back and forth between John and I. And then it spread and now it's all over. And rip is like synonymous with FPV now. Ripping balls, maybe not so much, but the term rip is pretty much like the standard. Like when you hear people snowboarding, they say shred, or, surfing is shred, or skateboarding is shred. Like rip is definitely synonymous with FPV. And I think it started, at least a major part of that started. It could have it could have started somewhere else. Like someone in California said rip, but ripping balls came from Atlanta and John and I specifically.
Hell yeah.
that I'm aware of. I mean, unless someone knows something I don't. But ripping balls, man, I own rippingballs.com, and I bought that shit like 5 years ago. So
There
it's
was some battery straps that said ripping balls on them. Did you have anything to do with that?
nope.
Well,
The
somebody
clean
capitalized.
the original clean flight board had a ball sack on it. I still have, like, you could snap it off. Like there was like a clean flight board that came out in, like, I think it was 20, it was definitely in 2016. You know, Dominic Clifton, the guy that makes the clean
Yeah.
flight stuff. Like, he had a board and you could snap off this ball sack, and it had a little key. You could put it on your keychain. It was like a little tiny square that had a like circuit board ball sack on it. I have one in my toolkit downstairs. It's kind of funny. He was all about ripping balls. I mean, boom and ripping balls were like huge in 2016, 2017. People would just like roll up on shit and be like, boom, or they'd say ripping balls, or no, we just fucking ripped. I don't know. It's pretty fun. It's funny to see that shit. I don't know if people do it as much anymore, but I see the term rip all over the internet. So I know that
Yeah,
one's still alive.
everybody uses rip. 507 wants to know, what social media do you hang out on the most? Instagram?
I hang out mostly, as far as like replying and talking to people, on Instagram. Yeah. And mainly just because it's easier than YouTube. Because like YouTube, you comment on a video and like within 10 minutes it gets buried in a list of comments. And it depends on the video too. Like if you comment on so the first like 24 hours of any video that I put up, I usually try to reply to most of the comments. Most of them. I mean, not all, but I try to reply to a lot of the comments. Um, that aren't just like, that was sick. You know, like if it's a legit question in there, then I try to go comment on it. But like some of the videos, like I've been putting a lot of videos up recently, and they'll get 300 or 400 comments in the first day. And I've been having a hard time keeping up with that, but I read them all, and I reply to the dumb ones, like the ones talking about my hair color and how I dye it. Um, but yeah, some of the ones that probably should reply to, I haven't yet. But Instagram, that's it. I don't reply to the comments, but the DMs, I'm all up in them Instagram DMs all the time. Facebook sometimes, but it's kind of hard to get through to me most of the time, because I
Right.
have just so many unread random requested things, and I only check that like once a week. So I don't know, and unless I like know it pretty regularly, like I'm used to seeing it online, like on Facebook, then I just assume. I don't know. I don't know what I assume. I don't reply because I don't have time to start a conversation.
Jake's Drone Addiction wants to know, do you have any plans to come to Montana?
Montana. But do you know Montana? Or you thought you knew Montana. You know that video? That's a funny ass video. I don't know. Montana is like one of those, it's like Delaware. Like I mean, Montana is way cooler than I think Delaware would be, but I just have no plans to go there. Not because it's not cool, just it doesn't show up on the radar of like places to visit to me for me. It's also really fucking far away from
Right.
me. I mean, that's like almost just California style flights, you know. Um, I might register a car in Montana, so I might have a Montana plate at some point in the future, but I don't know if I'll have ever been there, because apparently, like Montana, you can register cars and not pay, or you don't have emissions and you don't have to pay tax on the
No
car.
shit.
There's like a weird loophole if you have a lot of people here in Georgia do it, and all over the state, or all over the states. If you're in a state where you can't register a certain car, like say an Ariel Atom, or you buy a really expensive car, like a $300,000 or $400,000 car, and you don't want to pay, you know, whatever it is, 7% tax to
Yeah,
register it,
fucking $50,000 tax or whatever.
yeah, then you can register it in Montana with an LLC. So if you start an LLC in Montana for $500 and you hire a lawyer and you pay him like, I think it's $150 to $200 a year to upkeep your LLC, then you technically have a residency in Montana at that point, and you can register a car under it, and you don't have to pay tax on it, and you don't have to do emissions because they don't have emissions in Montana. And the Montana plates are pretty fucking rad too. So
I
if you
fucking
see it,
learned something today.
yeah, it's a little bit of a weird, like, sneaky loophole. You might get pulled over a little bit more, but technically there's nothing against the law. Like people are going to say it's tax evasion, but so is moving to fucking Puerto Rico. So tell all the rich people that have second homes in Puerto Rico that live there for 180 days out of the year so they don't have to pay federal taxes on their income. It's fucking ridiculous. Anybody that makes over six figures a year that lives in fucking Puerto Rico, you're tax evading. So go fuck yourself if you're going to criticize me for registering a car in another state to justify not having to pay tax on something that's used. You have to pay tax on used cars. You buy a car used, you pay 20 grand for it. You got to pay whatever the market says is worth in tax on a used car. It's fucking so stupid. That's like a new thing that we have in Georgia. I'm sure that's been around in California for fucking forever because California is just out of control. But yeah, sorry.
Hawkeye says like the Red Cat CEO.
Exactly. A guy's a nice guy, but he's a tax evader. He's a nice guy.
Conesti says he's currently looking for Puerto Rico real estate.
Damn straight. So am I. Not really.
608 wants to know when are the heated lipo bags going to be back in stock?
Hopefully when the coronavirus is a little bit more under control.
Right?
I
It's
don't
throwing
wanna-
a
I don't wanna
fucking
be
wrench in
s-
everything.
Yeah, I don't want to be sending people fucking coronavirus infected bags. We have a lot of stuff that's been kind of on hold because, well, I mean, all of China is on hold right now because of the coronavirus. They're supposed to start everything back up in early March, which again is like a week and a half, 2 weeks from now, but still sucks. But everyone knows Chinese New Year basically between like basically January to April, you're fucked if you want anything from China, even though it's only 2 weeks.
Throws a big wrench in everything.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take a few more questions and then we'll call it a night. I know I've had you on here almost 2 hours. I appreciate you staying with us.
Yeah, anytime.
Death Roll wants to know, have you tried any FET Tech stuff?
Yep. Yeah, I've been kind of testing some prototype stuff for Felix. Felix Neeson is the guy that created Kiss. He created all the Kiss stuff. So when he left Flyduino, I was kind of sad because he's the one that kind of innovated all of the Kiss stuff. I mean, he had some help in the later years with firmwares from Alex, and there's a couple other guys that were helping him. And then Flyduino owned by Paul Bake. He's a super cool guy as well, and like that whole Flyduino team is awesome, and I really like supporting Kiss and what they produce. But when Felix left, I was kind of like, well, fuck, like what's going to happen now? Because he's kind of been innovating for the last 4 or 5 years in the whole FPV industry. Like everything that comes out of Kiss is basically first of its kind and refined to a point where it actually works, except for the Kiss FC for a while. It had some mid throttle vibration situations, but once Kiss V2 came out and they figured out the Kiss V1, it's been pretty much solid. And yeah, I've been testing some stuff for them mainly just because I enjoy working with Felix. But the only reason would be is because it'd be like future wise. It'd be something where I would, maybe go to like 8 or 10s, and there's just not an ESC on the market that's going to be able to do that. And some of the stuff that I've been prototype testing can do that stuff, but it hasn't been as reliable as I would say it should be. So yes and no. Like I like it, I test it, but it's not something that I'm going to switch to right now, or anytime in the near future. But maybe sometime if Flyduino doesn't come out with something that can handle. Ultimately, I would like something a little bit more reliable for a little bit more people. Like how I make my 25 amp KISS setup. Like that works for me, but out of 10 people, there might be one that has a problem. Maybe I don't think it's that many, but you kind of get the idea. Like I would rather it be something that's just so bulletproof that I don't even care if you soldered it with a blowtorch, it still works. Like that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Right.
Not necessarily for me, but for just general people that are trying to build something and get into this. Like it's a little bit nicer on, instead of having to solder and be a master of soldering to make sure everything doesn't catch on fire. That would be the ideal thing, and that would be the only reason that I ever switch from the 25 amp, unless I switch to some shit that's like, 8S or 10S, but then you got to work about batteries and weight, and there's all kinds of other things. So yeah, I've tested some FetTech stuff, but nothing that's super impressed me yet. But it's good stuff, and I enjoy what Felix does for the hobby. So
Go Nasty said make a video on how to solder with a blowtorch.
I could.
I think
I
he's
don't have a
hating on
blowtorch.
your most recent tech video you made where you were teaching everybody to solder.
Dude, it was so funny. I got so much hate from all these like pro solderers out there. Like, I'm sorry, but you can make your own fucking video about how to pro solder, because there's plenty of YouTube videos about how to solder. Like,
Right?
you can go on YouTube and type in how to solder, and there's a perfectly good video. It's got like 5 million views of this most epic solder tutorial in the world. But nobody wants to watch that shit. They want to watch me fuck it up and then learn from that. So that's kind of why I did it. I was like, look, there might be 500 people that have ever watched this video and benefited from the other how to solder video. But for some reason, like, if it doesn't have drone in the title, it doesn't translate for people. If it's not someone that they know that's doing the same thing that they're doing, then it just doesn't translate. They're like, oh, well, this guy's really fucking good, and he can take like the tiniest circuit board apart and like put surface mount components on, and they have all these epic macro shots and shit. But unless it's got a drone involved, like, a lot of people just don't compute, and they're like, nah, whatever. I'm gonna smash this thing at like 100 degrees and go out and try to beat this solder into submission. So that's kind of why I did it. It's just like, hey, I'm relatable because you know that I fly drones. So this is how I solder. Might not be the best way in the world, but it works, and it produces professional style solder joints that, are going to work for your professional flying of drones.
There you go.
Yeah. I am happy with the HD2s, HDO2 Snoopy RC. I see that comment.
Okay, you got that one. Jake's Drone Addiction wants to know what can you say about the iFlight board that uses KISS?
What? I
Have you
don't know
seen
about
that
it.
one?
Mm-mm.
The iFlight flight controller that uses KISS.
No, I don't know about it. So there is like, I mean, KISS is a firmware thing, right? But it also depends on the layout and how shit's flown through it, like flowing through it, not flown. So like, if you have a different circuit boards and you have the same firmwares on them and you have different chipsets, then it can result in a different outcome. So for me, the KISS V2 is just kind of the most. It's designed by the people that design the software and all of the stuff that works with it. So just, I don't know if you're going to be able to improve on it, maybe in price, but I don't know if the flight performance is going to be the same. Excuse me.
Right. Trappy said they're going to do a live cooking show in 20 minutes, so we'll try to get off here before then. Dufour
I
wants
see
to
him in
know...
there.
Huh?
I see him. I see
Yeah.
him in there.
Dufour wants to know, is the Apex here to stay for a while?
I think the Apex is going to be around for a solid 3 years, if not more. I can't think of something that would justify having to. I mean, so if you look at it this way, the Alien came about in 2015 and was pretty much the pinnacle of FPV frames for 4 years. Like, no one, I mean, there are a lot of FPV frames out there, and obviously a lot of big pilots flew the Alien, so it was popular. But from a just general design standpoint, it was extremely simple and it was extremely durable, and it built really well. And that's kind of the things that you want. You want something that builds really well, and you also want something that's durable. You want something that accommodates the electronics that are currently being used. And that's kind of the reason why the Alien it didn't die, but it like slowly started to taper, was the fact that the electronics were becoming a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit smaller. So we needed like a platform that could potentially support these newer style electronics. And that's really the only reason that the Apex came about. So the Apex is essentially a little bit more refined. It's a refined 4 years of flying and fucking aliens up, and then me saying, hey, this is what I want. And it came out the way that it did. And it's not exactly how I imagined it. It's better, really, but it's not exactly the original design that I went to Sean with. Like, it's it's a very similar, but I originally I had the idea of having 5 bolts on the bottom with a central locking bolt. Um, but no one ever got the central locking bolt correct. Like everyone that did that, it was always had slop in it. Um, I remember people, there was like one frame, I forget, was it the rooster, I think? Like you had to do the rooster tug. We like crashed and you had to pull the arms apart because they would
Right.
slop together and the props would touch. Like there was all kinds of problems with that. There was a couple of frames, like some Astro X frames that came out that would have a little bit of slop in the arms, and any slop is going to take away from durability and flight performance. So we wanted to be as rigid as possible, and it took forever to figure out how to key it correctly and have the arms be uniform, because that was another problem. If you don't have the arms all set all the same, then you have to cut different arms, and then if you break a front right arm, then you got to order a front right arm. You can't just replace it with an arm. If you don't have a front right arm, then you need a front right arm. So you got to make everything symmetrical. So there's a lot of design characteristics that went into it that kind of led to the way that it ended up being, but it took a lot of trial and error to get that central locking system to not have any slop. And I didn't even get a prototype until Flitz had like exploded like 5 of them. Like I think I'm pretty bad about taking early on prototypes. Like if you got a prototype of something, like I'll take it, but it better fucking work at least 85-90% the way that it should, or I just don't even want to fuck with it. I just don't have the time. So with that, I think Sean knew that, and he was like, "All right, we're gonna send a Steele like when this thing's fucking done, ready." So they sent it to me, and it was like, "All right, start ordering these things. This thing is sick." So
Hell yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Carnasty wants to know if you put pineapple on your pizza.
hell yeah, why not? I love that shit. People are so angry about that. I don't give a fuck. I like pineapple on pizza. It's cooked. It's good. It's sweeter.
Dennis Lee wants to know, do you keep in touch with the old school guys?
I keep in touch with everyone except Sharpoo and Noak. And the reasoning being is not because I don't have anything against them or anything. It's just Carlos has a life of his own, and I respect that. And I think you know, I don't want to just like, I feel like I could hit him up and it would be cool, but there's always this thing I think in the back of his mind, like, are these people hitting me up because they want something from me, or are they just hitting me up because they're my friends? So like, I don't want to impose that on Carlos. I don't want to impose that thought upon him. Like we were always just like, dude, I just respect you for you. Like, I don't give a shit if you even fly anymore. Like you're just a cool ass person. So I mean, I follow him on Instagram and like I'll like his stuff, but I'm not trying to like impact his life in any way. I think he got out of FPV because he wanted to, and that's that. But and Noak, we, had our differences and we ended up making up. And I think he's found a way in life where he's great and he doesn't have to bring up the past, and I don't need to bring up the past. And everybody's happy. So I'm just gonna, if Chad wants to get together and have lunch like we've done in the past, that's cool. But I'm not gonna sit on the phone with him like I used to. And I mean, I used to talk to Chad on the phone for like 24 hours at a time. Like we had that much in common. We could just sit on the phone and fucking chat for days. It was like it was like middle school girlfriend status. We'd be on the phone.
Oh shit,
Like,
it's been 6 hours.
yeah, like, are you asleep? Someone's like snoring on the phone. The fuck, dude? So, yeah.
Double A wants to know, have you ever put one of your rigs to try to go to the moon?
I've been to the moon, man, and back. No, I set up
Crossfire link.
a couple quads recently with diversity on them just because I wanted a little bit more confidence in my downtown, like very high noise floor flying. Just diversity on a digital system is a lot more reliable because you have multiple polarizations. But I think it's just, it's really like I can, so I'm going to do it rather than I need it. I've never really had any problems, but it gives me a little bit more confidence. At the end of the day, I think the video link's going to go out way before I feel like the radio link's going to give out. And
Right.
I've had that happen pretty consistently recently where I, get kind of close to the top of a building and video is real sketchy. And I'm like, okay, I'll just come down now. And the RC link was 100% the whole time. So if anything, we need to, figure out HD or not HD. We need to figure out more, We need to figure out better receivers and better transmitters. I would love to see like a 5 volt, thousand milliwatt with like 1,000 milliwatt with like a heat sink or something like that, like a tiny little 5 volt transmitter that does 1,000 milliwatts.
Sounds like an ethics product.
Or maybe just a TBS. Tell traffic to slap a fucking heat sink on that thing and turn it up.
Make it small and crank it up. Might as well go
Make
to
it.
1.2. Fuck it.
Yeah, I'm trying to melt some shit. I always wonder, like when I'm flashing a board on a quad and the transmitter's like sitting there right next to my crotch. I'm like, am I sterilizing
Radiating
myself right now
myself.
with this shit? Like that bitch is on 800 milliwatts, just like transmitting right
Hot as
now.
fuck.
Yeah.
So speaking of Trappy and TBS, have you been using the Tango 2?
I have one. I haven't been using it mainly because I just haven't been flying a lot recently. I haven't flown since I don't know. I don't think I've flown a quad in like 2 weeks. And I meant to set it up, but I just haven't. I'm so I, I'm so used to the way that my radio feels now, and the reason I don't want to switch to the Tango is because the way that rest it on my stomach, I feel like
Right.
I'm so close to my stomach with the Tango because it's such a tiny radio when I'm holding the radio like this. So to me, I'd have to like relearn everything, and I don't know if at this point it's. I mean, I've been flying a Tyrannus since that was my very first radio, and I've been flying pinch since I started flying FPV. So I've basically been flying the exact same radio for the last 6 years, and now you're gonna throw me a little tiny radio that I need to learn. And it's not that it's a bad radio, just for me personally, I don't think I'm gonna benefit from switching to it. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not working on something. I'll just leave it at that.
I got one. I got my stuff switched over to it. Man, they're pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, I think for most people, it's definitely a way better alternative than buying a Tyrannus and buying a big Crossfire unit.
I was
Like,
coming from the X10S, so it's like a gigantic, big difference as far as
yeah,
size.
yeah, I had that radio. I had FR Sky sent me one of those things, and I was like, yeah, it's too big. It's like a
Yeah.
jetty. It's like a jetty, right?
But I hear you. If you're putting it up against your stomach, the Tango's got a little, not really exactly for that. So it's more.
I was telling Trappy to maybe make a 3D printed part that goes on the bottom that kind of spaces it, and
There
maybe
you go.
like if you held it like this and you had the 3D printed part that came out the bottom, and then you can mount the FPV screen in there, then you'd basically have, everything you needed
Oh, that'd be sick.
and a rest. Like somebody that 3D prints and design shit, hit it up.
Yeah, hook
Make
it
that
up.
little FPV screen spot down there. That'd be cool.
People out there watching, hook it up.
Yeah, I do think this freaking FPV guy says it's really easy to unpack and like get going. I can attest to that being a huge
Yeah.
upside. But
It made room in my bag for my goggles and the Tango 2 in the same place that I used to just have my transmitter. So now I can leave my antennas on my goggles and pack it away. So that was pretty cool.
yeah, that is a pain in the ass. Like I spend, when people are like, "How long does it take you to set up?" I say, 2 minutes. It's probably like 5. Because I got to screw shit on, turn shit on, and set it
Yeah.
up, put a battery on, put a GoPro on. Like, yeah, it takes a minute. Where like a Tango 2, I feel like boop, pop it on, it's good to go.
All right,
I'm
we're going to
also
take 2 more questions and then we'll
okay.
call it a night. Miguel Weiss wants to know, are we getting green V2 straps for goggles soon?
They're on order,
Same
and
thing.
they're refined even more. Like so, I guess quick story. They are going to be like the V1 strap, which I think at the end of the day, for me, I liked that strap a little bit more. But it's slightly changed, so it's going to be a little different than both straps are the new one that we just ordered, but it is going to be green, and I think it's better. I've been using this strap, the new one, and it's fucking, I can't fault it. The V2 stuff, sometimes depending on what battery you had and how big your head was, if you like pulled really hard, the battery could possibly move, and that was just depending on the battery you had. But yeah, there's always refinements to be made. You think you've made something perfect, and you find out that, hey, for this particular scenario it doesn't work, or this particular thing, like for instance, the very first strap that we made, I used it for 3 months, never had a problem. We ordered them. I went out the first time I went somewhere where it was really cold, I had a beanie on. I put my goggles over my beanie and the strap went like ripped off and I almost dropped my goggles. I was like, what the fuck? Why'd the strap rip off? And it was just because I don't usually run my strap like super tight
Right.
and there was no stitching. Like if you look on the newer straps, like you got to turn the stitching of the left side of the goggle inside of the goggle. Otherwise, because there's like a trade off. You go with a thicker material, it doesn't pull out, but it's not as comfortable. Like that's why if you ever looked at the hot dog straps, they were like this kind of thicker material, which I was never a fan of because it was like it just wasn't comfortable. Like if you had short hair or if it was like touching your ear, it was kind of abrasive. So I went with like the softer Fat Shark style material. But then if you have a softer, thinner material, then it has the option to pull through. So you got to make sure you turn the stitching on both sides. On this particular side over here, we put a stitch on it. But it was just like this thing that I never even knew was a thing because I don't usually rock my head strap tight. And then we had already ordered them. And I was like, fuck, dude, now I got to fucking stitch these things. Like it was just a debacle. All this shit like happens the worst possible times, especially when you're trying to manufacture stuff.
It's Murphy's Law, brother.
Exactly.
So, last question. Death Roll FPV wants to know, where did you get that dope sweater? I've seen you in a video with the same print on a t-shirt.
This is
A Miss Creature, isn't it?
yeah, Miss Creature, but the shirt, the company is MRP. Um, it's multi-rotor parts, Netherlands, Dutch something, MRP. Anyways, they had these like weird designer line of t-shirts on their site for a long time, and they sent me a couple of them. This is actually, like you said, a Miss Creature print, and they printed it on these designer style shirts. And when I say designer, like the cut is really weird. Like this hoodie is super long, but it's really thin, and that's what I love about that black T-shirt that I have. Like it's just super tight, and I'm kind of like a fit. I'm pretty fit, so I like that. And it's like real fucking tight. The arms are really long, and it just fits really, really well. And I have not yet found another shirt that fits like that shirt. And I've been trying since I got that, which was like 2.5, 3 years ago. And this hoodie's cool as shit too, but it's definitely not. I found out that when I started ethics, I really wanted to do like a lifestyle brand. So I wanted to have cool ass shirts and designs and clothing options. And then I quickly found out that there are a lot of people in FPV that are just bigger. It's just bigger. It's just a bigger community. So like when I come up with like a designer thing that I think is cool as shit, like it's only going to fit me and it's not going to fit anybody else. So that's kind of the reason why I steered away from that. And that's why I think these never sold so well, is just because not a lot of people are looking for scallop cut fucking designer t-shirts, you know?
Right.
So it's multirotorparts.nl, Netherlands, and they have it on their site. I'm gonna look right here and find it. But yeah, it's a print that Miss Creature did for them, and it's really cool. It's a good shirt.
Sweet, man. I'm going to give some shouts out to the chat real quick. You got 608, Chuck D, Do4, Grey Wolf, Hawkeye. We got Miguel Weiss, Freakin', Recognize, Intac. I'm sure some more people will pop in and say, hey, I'm over here too. I know I've seen quite a few more people throughout the night. Dragoneers was in there, MB, LJ. Of course, Trappy was hanging out for a little while. Conasty, Jake's Drone Addiction, Brendan. Let's see if I can find anybody else. Matty Fleisch, Grey Wolf, Snoopy RC, Evil Odin, Tony Briz. That's about it, I think. Plummet, if I missed you, my bad. Let's see. Espionage? Says he's over here too. Hawkeye says he misses your Subaru.
I know, man. Sold that shit. It's in Florida. It's in like Fort Lauderdale. If anybody wants to go down there and visit. I thought I was gonna buy another one, but nah, I don't think I'm doing.
You like the Lotus too much, right?
No, I've graduated from a car that a 25-year-old would own, I guess.
There you
I
go.
just like Subarus is not necessarily that, but like if you're in the aftermarket world of a Subaru, then it's like basically dudes that can barely afford to, put gas in the car, so they're always trying to like lowball you, and it's so dumb. Like when the STI came out in 2004, it like changed the entire tuner world because it was the only turboed car that you could get here in the United States that was Japanese. It was all-wheel drive, and it's the only tuner car that wasn't front-wheel drive that was worth a shit. And I guess basically since then there have been other options. So the STI has kind of fallen on the wayside, and it's become a little bit more affordable. And I just, when I was 16, that was the car I wanted. So I got it. It wasn't what I remember. Sold it. Got the next
Right.
step up in my, what I want in life. Next step is the GT3 RS 991.2, but I don't know. And a Cybertruck, hopefully at some point.
KTMJ and Abdul are also in the chat. So there you go, guys. Got you some shouts out. Anybody watching, if you've not made a comment on the NPRM, please go and do that. If you have a chance to get to the protest, it's in Washington, D.C. on the 29th, I believe. Make sure you try to get there if you're at all close by at all. I'm sure every person will be appreciated and needed. Any parting words, Steele?
Abdel, what's up? I haven't seen him in a long time. Parting words. Well, I hope in the next couple weeks we don't get our rules changed too hardcore, and I'll continue to put out whatever I can do to help you guys and have fun in this fucking cool ass hobby. And thank you guys for being around and supporting what I do. So thanks.
Hell yeah.
And thanks for having me on this podcast, Chris.
Yeah, no problem, brother.
Or
Glad to
live
have you,
stream.
man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been fun. All right, on that note, we're going to end it for the night. We'll see you guys Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern next week. Hope everybody has a great night. Keep ripping balls.
See ya.